You finish the conversation, say goodbye, walk away, and you feel nothing. No replay. No, should I have said that differently? No checking your phone to see if they're still thinking well of you. Just silence. And it's not numbness. It's not indifference. It's something else entirely. People have noticed. Your coworkers call you cold. Your family says you're too independent, too closed off, that you don't care what anyone thinks. Old friends drift away because they say you never seem to need them anyway. Even the people closest to you have used words like distant and detached, like those are diagnoses. And some nights, alone, you've sat with that, turned it over. Wondered if the ability to walk through rooms of people without needing a single one of them to validate you is actually a wound you've learned to call a feature. But what if it isn't a wound at all? What if the thing they call cold is actually the rarest form of psychological freedom a human being can develop, and most people spend their entire lives never getting close to it? Psychologists have a name for this. And the research says that what others read as detachment is actually the architecture of a mind that was forced to become its own foundation. There's something you do that almost no one around you can relate to. When you make a decision, a real one, about your life, your path, your values, you don't consult the room. You don't send the soft feelers out to see how people will react before you commit. You decide, and then you decide. And the deciding doesn't change based on what anyone says after the fact. Most people see this and assume arrogance. They think you don't care about other people's feelings, that you've mistaken stubbornness for strength. But that's not what's happening. That's just how it looks from the outside when someone hasn't needed external permission in a long time. What's actually happening is internal locus of control, one of the most studied constructs in personality psychology. The difference between people who feel their life is happening to them and people who feel they are happening to their life, you don't wait for the world to confirm your direction is right, you confirm it yourself. That's not arrogance. That's a nervous system that learned to trust itself when nothing else was reliable. And that shift from seeking to self-sourcing doesn't happen by accident. But that's not even the most interesting part. There's a second thing you do that most people around you find unsettling, even when they can't name why. You don't perform. When someone compliments you, you receive it plainly. When someone criticizes you, you evaluate it plainly, and if it doesn't land as true, you set it down and walk away without carrying it. You're not performing gratitude you don't feel. You're not deflecting critique with false modesty. You just respond to what's real. On the surface, this reads as emotional unavailability. People think you're not moved by them. And in a world where most social interaction is an elaborate exchange of validation, I confirm you, you confirm me, we both leave feeling seen. Someone who doesn't need to participate in that loop feels like a threat. But here's what's actually happening. Psychologists studying emotional autonomy describe this as non-contingent self-worth, a sense of value that isn't indexed to external input. Most people's self-esteem functions like a stock price, moving up and down based on how others treat them that day. Yours doesn't trade on that market. And the reason that unsettles people isn't because you're cold, it's because your stability makes their volatility visible. You are a mirror. And not everyone wants to see what's in it. Let that land. There's a third layer to this, and it's the one that explains the loneliness underneath all of it. You've probably noticed that real intimacy is hard to find. Not because you push people away exactly, but because most relationships are built on a current of mutual need. I need you to need me, you need me to need you, and in that circuit we call it love. And you've tried. You've been in that circuit. But something in you always senses when the connection is need-shaped rather than choice-shaped, when someone wants you around because your approval fills something in them, and quietly, without drama, you lose interest. This isn't avoidance. This isn't your attachment system misfiring. This is discernment. Psychologists studying autonomy and relationship quality consistently find that people with the highest psychological self-sufficiency don't bond less deeply, they bond more selectively. They're not emotionally unavailable. They're available only to what's real. And the cost of that, the actual lived cost, is that real things are rare. So ask yourself, when was the last time someone was in the room with you, not because they needed you, but simply because they wanted to be? Those moments, you remember them exactly, because they're the ones that actually mattered. There's something no one tells you about being wired this way. It's expensive. The version of you that doesn't need approval had to be built by someone who once desperately needed it and didn't get it, or got it inconsistently enough that something in you decided to stop waiting. That independence wasn't a gift handed to you. It was constructed, slowly, out of necessity. And you've carried the weight of that construction for years. The self-reliance, yes, but also the question underneath it. The one that sounds like, does anyone see me without me asking them to? I'm not going to pretend this is easy. Being wired like this costs you. You've lost people who called your self-sufficiency aloofness. You've been in rooms where everyone could lean on each other and something in you couldn't quite do it, not because you didn't want to, but because you'd forgotten how, or because asking felt like a language you'd half unlearned. Some days the freedom is clean and clarifying, other days it's just quiet. But the fact that it costs you something, that's how you know it's real. The people who hand their identity to every room they walk into don't feel this particular kind of exhaustion. They're too busy managing how they're being perceived. They don't know what it feels like to sit inside a decision that belongs entirely to you, uncontaminated by what anyone else needs it to be. That feeling, that specific solitude, is the price of admission to something most people never touch. You were never broken for not needing their approval. You were just operating at a frequency most of them couldn't tune into, and calling it a flaw was easier than admitting they couldn't reach you. You don't need to be fixed. You never did. You already knew that. If this described you, leave a comment, even just one word, because the person scrolling past your comment needed to read it just as much as you needed to write it. And if you want to understand more about why you are the way you are, subscribe, because this isn't the last conversation we need to have. See you in the next one.